Okay, everybody, I am running a tutorial, but nobody's showed up, which is totally fine. I understand it's pretty busy and I record this anyway, so you've probably got the opportunity to come in and just have a look at what I've recorded. So I'll record me going through the answers. This is your opportunity to ask questions. So if you do have questions, then you might want to tune in next Tuesday at midday. But fair call, if you can't do it, that's totally fine. So what I will do is just leave it open, so people might come in and I'll just say hello as they come in. Otherwise, I'll just run this through for you nice and quickly, and then it'll be over and done with. Okay, so the case study discussion for week 3, there were 2 case studies to have a look at. There's quite a large case study, this one, in terms of the activity that you need to do. You probably didn't have to do it, but it's really good practice in a lot of ways, because it's actually talking about showing you how to write a literature review and think about literature. So, okay, I've decided to copy in the actual case here because it's a little bit easier to follow when I do. I'm not going to read this all to you. But basically the task is to go to secondary data sources such as universities' online databases, talk to your librarian, all these other things to figure out how you can find out secondary information. Research papers in particular, I think, is where they're going with this one. Also scan several of the articles that you've found, make some key points, and this is teaching you how to think about organising articles as you find them into categories, so then you can start thinking about writing a literature review. So this is to review the current situation, like a situation analysis, so then you can actually write to keep it organised, so you can write an ordered literature review. It's also part of a literature review is evaluation of the sources as well, talking about how reliable they are. Sometimes sources might not be super reliable, but they may have the only information you can find, and so you can look at that and say it's not super reliable, but it says this or whatever. So they're the sort of things that a literature review can do. So, all right, let's go number 2. All right, so finding secondary data sources. Now, as a scholar, I research a lot, and what I use is Google Scholar all the time. Now, you probably want to link the CQ University website to your Google Scholar, and it's pretty easy to do that. I'll see if I can actually show you. So this is Google Scholar here, but if you just go into Google Scholar, and we'll just that one, well, it's all my school websites there. So if we go Google Scholar, oh, here we go, I've got it already. Okay, so what you can do is go into settings, and you can go into library links. Hopefully this is still sharing. I think it is. It's not all bright green like it normally is. You can go, anyway, you can go in and then you can actually type. So I've got Central Queensland University Library there. I've also got James Cook University because I am still a member of their library, and also the National Library of Australia. So you can actually just go in and type in Central Queensland University, it'll come up, you search, and you can check it. And then what happens is when you search for something, mine usually comes up with JCU, so it's not that helpful, but like me showing you this, but it can be quite useful. So if I do like global warming, it's really climate change. It's an old-fashioned term, global warming. There you go. You can see I've already been searching some of those. See, I can find that at the JCU library there. I think maybe it's coming up with just the JCU library at the moment because that's the one I've always used. And you may find that you can also find PDFs of these, and so these are things that you can source. Okay. I'm still sharing the screen, I hope. Yeah, okay, so this is an energy policy. This is a journal article. It's listed in Energy Policy Journal, Eco Driving and Overlooked Climate Change Initiative. So this might be an interesting paper to have a look at if you're thinking about doing a lit review on that particular subject. Now, the other thing that you probably want to do is go to your CQU site and go to the library. Here we go, library down here, and search. Now, you can search for journal articles. So I'll go back to that one. Oh no, not that one, that one. Energy Policy is the journal that I'd like to look for. Oh, far up, what's the sprout? There we go, try that again because I know I found it and I'll put it up somewhere. Oh, there it is, okay, yeah. Okay, Energy Policy, search. Thinking. Okay, and hopefully it'll come up with some journals. Energy Policy Journal. Yep, so you've got online access to that, so you can go in and have a look. This is in CQ Library, and you can put in your username and password. And it should take you to that. And then you've got unlimited access to those journals. Now we can have a look at that journal. That's 38 2010, 38 in the year 2010. Go back to, there we go, 38, that's 31 to 40. Now you may know how to do this already, and I'm sorry if this is a little bit boring, but we do tend to find that not everybody does know how to do this stuff. So, yep, there we go. So there's volume number 38 in 2010, and it was pages 700 and something, 700 something. Anyway, you can go and find it, and that's how you go into the list down the side there, and you'll find the actual one. So I think it was 700, page 700 or something like that. I can't remember now. It might have been 7,000 though. And you can look it up and you can actually find, and then you can actually look at this. So here's just a random one. You might find other ones that are really interesting in that particular one. There you go, there's the thing, there's the article. You can read it fully like that, or you can download the PDF. So then it opens up the PDF for you and you can have a look at it, and you can download that to your system, and then you can put it in your citation manager. If you have EndNote, I can pop it in my EndNote library and download the citation as well. So happy to talk about showing you how to do that if you need any help. So that's essentially what searching on Google Scholar. So you can go search on Google Scholar, link into the library. You can also search. Google Scholar is good because it gives you the biggest, broadest range of things you can find, but it doesn't give you complete access to things. Whereas if you go through CQ Library, because you're a student with us, you can access all of those things. So it's much better. Okay, so you can search for terms like climate change, vehicle preference, green, smart car, whatever, and find that stuff. There we go, that's the library. There we go, put that up onto the big screen. Now, I'm not sure why this doesn't show. Oh no, it says it's showing the whole screen, so that's okay. Anyway, just hopefully you can see what I can see. So that's the library one anyway, library website. Okay, so what topics do we find and how do we summarise them? So it's important when you're looking at a literature review and you're thinking about summarising your sources, that you actually find like a conceptual framework is what it's actually called, is some kind of framework within which you want to assess the stuff. So the literature. So you might find that some of the key, here we go, I'll take you out of here again. Some of the key things that you want to look at, you might want to look at customer preference, user trends, and something else. And those things, I'm not really helping you, am I? I'm thinking, okay, so Global warming or climate change, yep, so there's sort of like scholarly articles on vehicle preferences, there might be user experiences of green vehicles, and there might be performance factors of green vehicles or something like that. So you can actually look this up, and there's a framework that it comes with, sorry, I need to explain myself a little bit better. A framework usually comes from literature. So there'll be some kind of article that says that when you're thinking about user preferences of green vehicles, these are the three main things that you need to consider. That then forms your conceptual framework, and you can look for things within that. So usually you can come up with your own conceptual framework and say, I can't find one, so therefore I am going to say that I'm looking for this theme, and this theme for these reasons, and you have to justify it yourself. Or you could say, according to so-and-so, they think you should be looking for this, and this, and therefore that's how I've done it. So they're the two ways of doing it within your conceptual framework. I hope that makes sense. All right. Okay, so that's how you summarise, and you can write out some notes. I often use the abstract and just make an annotated bibliography, which is where you take the abstract from each of the different articles, organise them in terms of themes, and then put them in together, so then you can read all of them. A more productive way might be to do dot points, or you can even put it in an Excel spreadsheet to summarise stuff. Evaluating the sources is really important too. You have to think about the purpose of the original study, whether you believe that they're actually they've done the right thing or not. Who collected the information? What information was collected? How was the information attained, and how consistent is the information with other information? So do they all agree, or do they disagree? Do two reputable sources disagree, or is there one reputable source that you think might be more right than the other? So they're the sort of things, when you're summarising this stuff, you also need to add your own critical evaluation, thinking carefully about what you believe to be the truth, or most accurately representing reality, potentially. Okay, all right, consumer attitudes and car buying intentions. Okay, so right, probably these are some of the things. I think that was question number. If Nick Thomas wants to learn about how consumers' attitudes toward global warming are related to car buying intentions, where might he find this data? There you go, I might make that a bit bigger for you so you can see it. Okay, and my suggestions to you were that you might get it from buzz or consumer-generated media, like big data and other review sites and things like that. E-word of mouth is another one, so how people have actually said, oh yeah, you should buy this car because it's fantastic, or it's not, or whatever. And the American Community Survey. So you can cross-check some of that with the American Community Survey. That's like the American version. Probably here we've got the Nielsen poll or consumer sentiment polls. There's a number of different polls and sort of commonly used sentiment gauges that are massive research projects right across Australia that actually gauge people's attitudes towards things like car buying intentions, because car buying intentions is actually related to prosperity and other measures, and so people like to measure that. So that's probably something you can find, especially if you're prepared to pay for it. Okay, all right, well I hope that sort of helps with case 5.2. Case 7.2. Okay, so really what they're asking you here is to think about the pros and cons of various types of data collection. This is just an applied case. In the lecture, I gave you a series of happy and sad faces, advantages, disadvantages, advantages, disadvantages. There's no perfect way of acquiring data. It really depends on your project. And as I said at the end of the final of the lecture for this week, I think I said that you have to weigh up, your need for the data quality versus time, money, and, your real life limitations like, scope, scale, how far you can go or want to go, and so on and so forth. All right, so just to think about it a little bit, this is really quite self-explanatory, and you can probably just use my lecture notes to think about this yourself. So I probably won't dwell on it. Mail survey, the pros, cons and special considerations. Well, one of the big ones with a mail survey, it takes time. People don't always respond. Often the people that do respond are people who don't have anything better to do than fill in mail surveys. So you might get more retired people. Or people who are really busy. You might not actually be getting a real true representation of the people that you want. It's usually a mail survey, with a few exceptions. A mail survey is quite often actually limited in scale to a set area. To do a national mail survey is an incredibly expensive and difficult thing to do. And also mail surveys are notorious having a very low response rate. So you might get a good response rate on a mail survey if you were thinking about, attitudes towards potholes in your street, because the council, you might get a lot of responses because people realise that if they fill this in, this might impact something quite close to them in their daily lives, and even busy people might respond to it because it's limited in its scale and it's potentially the easiest way to get a set geographical area. So in this case, what would be the pros and cons? Well, you'd be limited in your scope, it'd cost a lot, and you might not really get a good representation of people. Okay, phone survey. If a company was selected to do a computer-assisted telephone interview, what would be the pros and cons and so forth of that? Well, as discussed in the lecture, the pros are that it's relatively cheap. It's reasonably quick. If it's computer assisted, your data's already entered as you do it. You can get pretty good response rates, but you do annoy people when you do phone surveys, and people are less and less inclined to actually answer them because of the prolific nature of them these days. Also, as I mentioned, I think in the lecture, in India, I think it's only 1 in 10 households actually have a phone. So you may find, and also a lot of people even in Australia are saying to move away from having landlines and actually having mobile phones. So you might be calling someone thinking you're surveying them, but because they're not on a landline, you don't know where they are. So you might be calling someone because you've got an address in Queensland, but they may in fact live in Tasmania. So, and if you're calling them on their mobile, you're not going to know where they are. So you've got a few issues. You can ask for addresses and things, but it can be a bit difficult. You can have a look at the lecture notes for some more pros and cons, but they're I think we probably all know most of the main ones there anyway. Okay, why wouldn't you use a drop-off survey? Well, you probably wouldn't use a drop-off survey because it's hugely time-intensive to knock on a door and say, here, can I leave this with you and collect it next week? It's usually really limited in time, in geographical frame, because you've got to have someone going out. So that's the census is a drop-off survey, but obviously, we're all aware of the issues that they've had trying to move to an electronic survey. The reason they're doing that is because it's just so crazily expensive to do the drop-off survey. The group administered survey, similar again, it's just a group. It's not, in this case, he wants something much, much broader. He wants to know about demographics and profiles of the American public. He's not just looking at just what some people think. He could do that for a pilot study or an initial research study, but not for the big survey. Intercept survey, again, you can go into public places and malls and things like that with permission from the people who are running it. Again, it's really hard to hit vast tracts of places with an intercept survey. Because it's very people intensive. You've got to hire vast numbers of staff to to be able to administer that. Okay, so compare various collection methods, compare in-home interviews with online surveys. So in-home interviews, I think as we discussed, are probably really useful for sensitive discussions. So you might be wanting to talk about health or a cancer experience, or something really, quite difficult, and you may need to be at home to discuss those things. Or it might be that you really want to speak to people who are housebound. So maybe the elderly or disabled people, or people who suffer from xenophobia, not xenophobia, it's like the fear of other people and open spaces and so forth. You may be wanting to talk to them. In that case, in-home surveys would be quite good, but most of the time in-home surveys are a really inefficient way of actually getting people's data. We have done some in-home surveys, in-home interviews ourselves for research. We were examining people's attitudes towards their backyards in the tropics, and we were interested in people who've migrated from other places and having this experience of the tropics. And so we had really good experience, looking at people's backyards and seeing how they were managing with the tropical size insects and weeds and mosquitoes and everything else. So in that sense, that was an extremely good use of in-home interviews, but we only got, I think, maybe 15 responses, which was enough for our research. But yeah, it's very, very expensive to do it on a bigger scale than that. So online surveys would obviously be in this case of Global Motors. Online surveys would be a much better idea, as long as you can access email lists or access people's emails. So whether you have existing customers where you can just send out and ask them, drawing from your own customer database, that would be one good way of doing it. Or you could purchase email lists, although they have suddenly very declining response rate for those. Anyway, I think that's the end of my discussion on the case study. I've taken up 20 minutes of your time, so I hope that was interesting and useful for you. Next week, I just want you to remember, at the end of next week is the start of the online quiz. I really encourage you to have a look at the self-study quizzes on each week of Moodle, to have a bit of a think and have a look at the chapters. It specifically says what chapters it addresses, and it asks questions only on those chapters. So I'd really encourage you to have a look at those chapters and before you attempt it. I also want to remind you that there are no excuses for the online quiz. If your computer doesn't work, if you've got connection problems, whatever it is, you need to attempt the quiz reasonably early, get it out of the way, because if you have problems or issues and we don't have time to sort them out, you are going to not have the opportunity to do your quiz. So can I please encourage you to make sure that you do your quiz within the time frame, but nice and early, so if you have any issues. If you're halfway through and something really bad happens, like your connection drops out or your computer blows up, contact me as soon as you can, provided I'm available. You can contact me on email, hopefully, or my mobile phone if you really need to, and I will try and reset the quiz for you so you can take it again if there's a genuine issue. However, if you just think, oh no, I've stuffed it up, I want to try again, that's actually not going to be considered as a reasonable request. So think about that too. All right then, well, I'll see you next week, I guess, when I'll be putting up the recordings for next week and the week after soon. Okay, thanks, bye.